Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back. Thank you for watching videos and leaving the comments. I actually enjoy reading them and responding to them. Today, actually, we're gonna do something that one of the viewers asked for in the comments for a previous video. He said, enough with the exterior shots, give us some meat, like give us some driving. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm just gonna drive around and I will talk about the driving experience. We'll talk how it feels, what are the features that I like or do not like in terms of driving this car. As usual, I'm not sure where exactly I'm gonna end up, but at least in this video, viewers can actually hear me because I shot very similar video in the Cobra, trying to talk more about the graduation process, but the Cobra is so loud, it just, even though I was yelling essentially, you could barely hear me through the engine noise. This is super fast car, I mean like scary fast. This one though, this one's quiet, so you're gonna hear me well. So let's go. One of the obvious features of this car that everyone is talking about is the acceleration. Like with the instant torque and everything, the electric cars, they rule. There is nothing like it. And indeed, this Rivian claims that truck time from 0 to 60 is about 3 seconds. So let's try to do that, and to feel it the best, I'll put the car in the sport mode, where it goes into one of the lowest settings in the suspension. Yeah, the suspension is adjustable, ride height is adjustable like I mentioned before. It goes into stiff mode, so it actually pretty stiff, and I'll talk more about that a bit later. And now, since there is no one here, or there's actually a car coming at me right now, I'm gonna let it pass, and then there's a pretty straight road in front of me, so I'll stop now. And then, oh holy shit, fuck, oh, I shouldn't say that. Oh, whew. Oh, yeah, it's still the instant torque thing just gets me every time, because actually with the acceleration, it's a tricky thing, because I started doing the acceleration and I got the car first. I was like, okay, I do not feel this feeling of like when you watch videos, people doing crazy acceleration in Teslas and they're yelling and screaming, excited, and then I realized that all other cars that I was driving before, oh, another Rivian, hey, this is awesome actually. This is crazy. I mean, this is the third Rivian I've seen within the last 3 days. So, wow, I don't know what to say. There are a lot of them apparently. So anyway, yeah, acceleration. All other cars that I've driven recently, Camaro, it does about 4 seconds to 60. Porsche Macan was doing about 5 seconds. Cobra, if I'm lucky, I can probably get it from 0 to 60 in 3.5, but you have to be like really careful, ideal temperature, ideal tarmac, like, and doing everything with the clutch and the throttle perfectly. So it's really hard to do that, like putting that power to the wheels, to actually to the ground. It's very hard. But still, it's like, yeah, my best time in Cobra right now is 3.9 seconds. So going from all of that to Rivian, just 3 seconds, it's not all like, oh my god, this is crazy. It's still fast, it still feels fast. And when I gave this experience to my mom, for example, and my dad, they were like, "Oh," like those people in the videos that you see usually. But for me, the acceleration, it is fast, but it's not the speed, it's the torque from the very beginning, and the fact that you don't have to do anything essentially. Like, just you push the throttle. Is it throttle here? Again, I don't know. You push the pedal and it just goes. You don't forget to put it in the sport mode, and then you're all set. Actually, I'm gonna switch from sport mode to all-purpose right now, so it will go a little bit higher, and the ride is gonna be a little softer. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about, because this is the thing. Like, Rivian and a lot of people claim, oh, this is like the having multiple cars in one. You have a truck and you have a sports car because you put it in the stiff mode and sports mode and it goes fast. Well, so here's the thing. It's like making the suspension stiff does not make it a sports car. Yes, there is less of roll in the turns, but you can't fool physics. Science, whatever Jesse was saying in Breaking Bad, but it's a heavy car. It's almost 7,000 pounds heavy car, and you can feel it in turns. Whatever you do, like even if you put the suspension into stiff mode, you can still feel it. However, for what it is, for a very nice grocery getter, or maybe a very nice vehicle to go off-roading, it's actually pretty good. And since you're not going to take it to the track, not like drag racing track, but proper track, I mean, the amount of roll in turns, it's fine, as long as you remember that it's a truck, that it's a very heavy vehicle, and you don't try to take these turns at a very high speed. You're going to be fine. To be honest, I don't like the stiff suspension setting here, because I feel like it's a little bit too stiff. Maybe to do exactly that, to give people the impression that, oh, it's so stiff, you are driving a sports car. It's not. It's the whole balance of the sports car that you need to have in order to behave like a sports car. But yeah, otherwise it's fine. And like I said, as long as you're not pushing it into turns, because you feel like there's this whole mass is trying to slide, and the wheels are really struggling to keep that like 7,000 pounds just connected to road. You're gonna be fine. Going from 0 to 60 fast, oh, that's definitely fun. The novelty wears off, obviously, and I see from myself, like, even I started doing less of that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm fine. I know that it goes fast, and it's plenty for me. Just even if you're not trying from a traffic light, you will leave faster than other cars, just because the torque is instant and you go very, very fast. One of my friends recently asked me a question, like, what I like the most about this car. The truck. He asked me about the car, but yeah, I keep reminding myself that it's a truck. And I was surprised by myself, by the answer I gave, by what immediately came to my mind. And I said, the sound. It's like, the thing is that this truck, it's not a silent EV. If you go to Monroe Life video about this guy who was responsible for designing and building Ford vehicles many years ago, he bought Rivian for himself, for his wife, as he said. Like, this Rivian is also belongs to my wife. She's a primary owner. She lets me drive it, but nevertheless. So he's the guy who knows a lot of stuff about cars. So he did the suspension overview, and he inspected the undercarriage of the car, and he specifically mentioned that the way Rivian designed everything around the motors, and there are 4 of them, remind you, with 835 horsepower combined. So the way they designed everything around them is that there is plenty of motor noise still that you can still hear when you're driving this car. So that's when my friend asked me like what I liked about this car. I immediately responded, oh, I love the noise. I love how it sounds. And I'm trying to understand why, because I think like the best thing about this is that it's the feedback, like the audio feedback that you get from the car, from any car, like especially from the ICE cars. When you drive it and you hear the motor revving, and then you switch the gears, especially if you have manual, you switch the gears so you know what's happening. In electric vehicles, when they are very silent, when they're too silent, it's just that you do not really have like any connection to the car. It's just that it's an appliance that drives you from point A to point B. With this one, you can actually hear these 4 motors, and you know, like when it's spinning so fast, it's whining so like this high frequency pitch. For me, somehow, this is that connection to the car, even though yes, it's a computer on wheels realistically, but it still gives me that impression that I am feeling the vehicle. I understand what's going on, at least driving wise. Obviously there is some magic happening there between the battery and the motors. I actually paused because I was hoping that you could hear the engine motor, the motor noise. It's not the engine, these are the motors. But I don't know, this microphone might be very directed, so yeah, you probably won't be able to hear it. Another noise that I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm actually getting on the highway right now, is the wind noise. Whenever you go on the highway and you're driving around 65, 70, 75, depending on the speed limit, obviously, there is plenty of wind noise that you can hear from the A-pillars, from windows, from doors maybe. And to be honest, I do not know exactly. You can hear it now, right? I hope you can, because I can hear it very well. So to be honest, I'm not really sure what exactly is happening. Why is that? Is it because there is no motor noise, which enables essentially hiding this extra wind noise? Or maybe that's because it's a very boxy car with aerodynamic shape of the refrigerator, so that's why you could hear all of that. But in any case, yeah, that's what I hear right now on the highway. And I don't know, essentially when you turn up the music you can hear it less, and it doesn't bother me, but I've seen some people complain about it, so maybe it's supposed to be quieter. But again, if you're comparing this EV to, for example, Tesla EV, which is a very slick, very aerodynamic, obviously there's going to be less of that. This, like I said, with the aerodynamics of the brake or fridge, you will probably get that anyway. And the third noise that I wanted to mention, that actually is pretty funny, is this pedestrian noise that the vehicle emits when it goes under 20 miles per hour. I call it a TIE fighter noise because it's really reminds me of the TIE fighters in this Star Wars, like phew, phew, phew. And this is obviously this is more constant noise. I would say it's louder than on Teslas, so people can actually hear it. They do not understand that this is the vehicle coming, so they usually just turn around to see what is that, but at least it gets their attention, so it's already better than nothing, right? But yeah, this noise is actually coming. There are two speakers, one in the front, one in the back. You can barely hear it from inside the car, but I remember when the car was delivered, the guy was actually parking the truck on our driveway for the first time, and we were standing on the driveway, and my wife said, "What is this? I don't like this." And I was like, "Is this the sound that the truck emits all the time?" Luckily, it's not. It just only under to 20 miles per hour, and surprisingly, now since I associate it with the TIE fighter sounds, I'm like, yeah, fine, I'll just be driving with this sound. I try to keep the speed lower than 20 miles so our neighbors actually can hear it. And it's not like super loud, so as my Camaro, for example, that usually causes my neighbors to fall out of the bed when I started early in the morning. But it's still like loud enough for people who are in front of the vehicle to hear it. Speaking of highway, what this vehicle is actually is a great cruiser. Like, I wouldn't go as far as call it a GT car, right? Like a Grand Tourer, but at least when you just drive, it's pretty good. We had this truck for months and a half now, and odometer says 2,300 miles right now. So in months and a half, we've added 2,300 miles on the vehicle, and a lot of them obviously a highway. We went to New York a couple of times. We were driving around here in Pennsylvania. It's really a great car for highway driving. It's planted, it's heavy, so even when it's raining, you still feel very comfortable with this car on the road. And you just drive there, and as long as you know that there is a charger at your destination, so you don't feel like the range anxiety, you should be fine. Another very interesting feature of the truck is the adjustable height suspension, and the truck does a lot of that by itself. When you're driving in all-purpose mode, it just keeps the right height. At standard, it's 11.5 inches, but whenever vehicle detects that you're on the highway and you're doing a certain speed, probably over 50 miles an hour, it just lowers the vehicle into low mode with the right height is 10 inches. That's I assume for fuel efficiency, but that's the way it just adjusts itself all the time. It's like, I think when I go into the conserve mode, it lowers the vehicle even more, so that's the lowest energy consumption that you can get when you're driving the vehicle on the highway. But if you're driving off the highway in the conserve mode and you stop, and then vehicle thinks that you're probably better off at the traffic light on the higher setting. I don't know why. So it does a lot of this adjusting back and forth. but overall it's very comfortable. You don't see it, like, you don't notice most of that. It just sometimes I see the setting here on my display and it says, okay, you're in low mode right now. I didn't even feel that the car went into that. And yeah, by the way, in conserve mode, since the vehicle disables rear motors, it adds like 10 to 15 miles of range. And I drove it on the highway in conserve mode, and I don't feel a lot of difference in terms of driving and how the vehicle feels on the road when you're driving in conserve mode. I felt though, however, that it's much slower to accelerate on the highway. When I was driving in conserve mode and there was a Porsche next to me, and they obviously knew what the Rivian is, so they were summing me up. And I tried to show them the acceleration, but I forgot that the vehicle was in conserve mode. I'm like, oh, it's so slow. Shit. Anyway. Yeah, so I'll go back to all-purpose right now. Girls just want to have fun. They are driving it in a beat-up Miata, and this is awesome. And they're obviously having fun. Anyway, so since I'm driving on the highway, this is the good time to talk about another feature, what Rivian calls Driver Plus. It's essentially an advanced automatic cruise control, which in addition to keeping the speed at certain level, like any regular cruise control, but it also like scans the space in front of you, and if it detects the slowdown, it will slow down your vehicle as well. But this one, on some highways, knows how to drive to stay within the lanes. So you just you do like double tap here. It shows me there are the lines here. There's a vehicle in front of me, and now it drives by itself. It's still a hands-on feature. So in like 30 seconds, if I take my hands off the wheel, it will tell me to keep my hands on the wheel. But it drives pretty well, and I'm still very, very cautious about stuff like this, since I work in the software development industry and know how a lot of software is done. So I'm like not really trusting the systems here. There's bugs and everything, and like I know they probably test a lot, and now it just doesn't want to engage. Like it detects. Okay, now it's there. And so there is a turn here, so you can see the steering wheel turning by itself, and it's super, super creepy. I mean, and now it says keep your hands on the wheel, and I'll just turn it off as this. So funny, like back in 2004, 2005, someone gave me the Jeep Cherokee Sport, like a very nice boxy old Jeep. I still love those cars, and it had just a cruise control where it could keep the certain speed, but I think that was done by something just pulling the cable, and whenever I would enable it, I could just feel the throttle pedal like going up and down, and it was probably like the creepiest thing at that time I experienced. So okay, let me try to make this light. Yay, I made it. So it's a very similar feeling with this Driver Plus thing, when you're driving and vehicle starts turning the wheel instead of you, and I'm like, I cannot get used to that. And it is like useful in certain situations, like for example, you wanna have a snack, or like you stop by at drive through, you got some food, and then you're driving on the highway and you want to unwrap the sandwich, so you can like do that without worrying about vehicle just staying in the lane, within the lane. But otherwise, I'm not a fan of these technologies, so I'll keep it like off, and I let some other people do that. I'm fine not doing that. But here's the thing: this Driver Plus thing doesn't work on all highways. Like, there is a special selection of roads that it works on, and I don't really know what exactly is like a limitation there, because for example, a couple of days ago I was driving on 276, and I believe the eastbound is mapped, so you can enable the Driver Plus, and it will keep you within the lane, but the westbound is not. It's the same on the turnpike, like New Jersey, this special section of the turnpike, I-95, where it's still able to keep within the lane when you go northbound, but it's not when you go southbound. I don't know why is that. Just not like super worried about it. I thought it was worth mentioning that. And it's funny, like when you go on 276 and there's a concrete barrier dividing the lanes, but whatever cameras are looking ahead and to the sides, it shows me the vehicles here on the screen, but it also, when I'm driving in the leftmost lane, I can see that there are cars to the left of me, so it's seeing oncoming traffic as the vehicles in my lane for some reason, which is obviously stupid, and it reinforces my trust in the thought that we cannot trust these systems yet, because they are definitely not there yet in terms of making us comfortable and seeing everything well. I'm a big believer in the fact that I think these vehicles need LiDAR systems to actually see stuff on the roads. The cameras and ultrasound sensors are not enough. So it's obviously up to you whether you want to work with these systems or not. One thing I wanted to mention as well is that the navigation system here is very, very far from perfect. I mean, on the highway, it's very pessimistic in terms of arrival time comparing to Waze or Apple Maps. In the city, it's very optimistic versus those other applications. And I think it's mostly because it doesn't, the system does not get very good traffic data, so it's harder for it to predict the route and how long it's going to take you there to get there. But the other thing is that this system, Tesla and Rivian as well, they are so fond of their own systems that they actually resist putting stuff like Apple Car and Android Auto in their vehicles. So you essentially are forced to use their system and additionally use the phone for navigation, which I think personally is very stupid. But maybe they are just looking for a better way to integrate those third-party systems into their software. Obviously, it's not super high priority for them at the moment, but if you go to forums, Reddit or whatever, you'll see that a lot of people complain about the lack of these features, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of people who will tell, oh, no, you don't need CarPlay, let's shut up. I mean, I don't care, I want a choice. If I want the CarPlay option, I'm just going to use it. If you don't, then don't use it. But I think obviously big corporations like Apple and Google, they have better access to all of the data, so their navigation is definitely better than the system here. And I'll talk about the navigation and the lack of some of the features here when I show more of the interior in the future, but this is where we are right now. Okay, and I'm gonna finish on actually a funny note that stuff that you do not expect from the electric vehicle, but suddenly it's a surprise that it's twofold. So obviously this vehicle is electric, so there is no ICE engine in it. There is no fire bursting inside of the cylinders, which means that this vehicle is not very hot. What I mean by that is that in winter, when after driving it and you park it in the garage that is not heated, it's not going to heat your garage as opposed to other vehicles that have the ICE engine in them. I love the fact when I was like, whenever I wanted to work on Cobra in winter, I would just take my Camaro, driving around for 15-20 minutes, parked it in the garage, and in half an hour it would be a very warm garage. So obviously it's a benefit in summer when everything is hot, and then you put this car into a garage and it's not getting much hotter, so that's cool. But one little downside to all of this is that if you were driving in the rain and you brought a wet vehicle into a garage, since there is no heat from the vehicle, it stays wet for a very, very long time. I think it's like takes up to 24 hours to vehicle finally to dry up, and there are puddles of water under the truck just because the garage is not warmed up, so water is not drying up. It just goes down on the floor. But it's like it's a funny thing. It's not a pro or con per se. It's just a funny observation that I had with this vehicle. I think this is all that I had for you for today. Stay tuned for other videos. I still have plenty of stuff to talk to you about. Mostly complaints, obviously, because I love complaining. But even though I complain a lot, this is a popular notion that, oh, you people only complain and you don't have anything constructive. Like, this is an awesome truck. This is an awesome vehicle per se. This is a great electric vehicle. So I have a bunch of stuff that I love about it. It's just that these things, the little things that I mentioned here and there, they do not like seriously affect my overall very positive impression about this vehicle. So like I said, stay tuned, subscribe, and wait for other videos that I'm going to show you pretty soon. Take care. Bye. Hey, one thing I forgot about regenerative braking. That's something that you will have to get used to when you're driving an EV. I assume that all EVs have this. By the way, I'm actually right now, I'm just charging. I was exploring the new chargers that I found on the map. It adds 500 miles per hour, although I don't think it will actually keep that rate because just the more full battery is, it's the slower the charging is. But it's actually pretty cool. So it's 350 watts EVgo fast charging thing. That's awesome. Anyway, regenerative braking is something that essentially extends the range. That if the car is slowing down and without you braking it, so it spins the motors, charging the battery back. So the thing is with Rivian is that you cannot disable it completely, which makes sense because it's a free energy. Why would you want to put that away? It's just that there are two settings. It's called okay, so it's I cannot switch right now because vehicle is charging, so it doesn't let me change the settings for some reason. But there's a standard brake regen, and there's the high brake regen. So there is no option to turn it off. It's like really taking, like, at first it sounds weird that you essentially have to drive with one foot and one pedal. You take off the foot from the throttle and the vehicle slows down. After half an hour, maybe a day of driving, you get used, you calibrate yourself, like you know how well it stops the vehicle. So we all started driving with standard brake regen, and then later switched to high because it's essentially just vehicle brakes for you, and you have to use brakes in really like urgent situations, or if someone stops right in front of you unexpectedly. But this is actually pretty cool. We've been driving it. It definitely extends the range, especially when you're driving in the slower traffic. And that's it. It's just tiny bit of driving how to learn this. But if you're coming from another EV, that shouldn't be an issue for you. For me, the Rivian is the first EV that we are driving. For me, my son, my wife. But we got used to that pretty quickly, and we find this feature actually awesome, even in high setting. So that's that.